A major shakeup is coming to a major media company. 84-year-old Rupert Murdoch is preparing to step down as CEO of 21st Century Fox and will likely let his sons take the reins.
Earlier, I spoke with CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger about how significant this is.
Now, it's very interesting because obviously Rupert Murdoch, huge personality, powerful person. In this, this is sort of leaking out a little bit at a time, so we don't know the exact chronology of when this is going to happen. Could be sooner rather than later, maybe next year. But it's obvious that James coming back into the fold after coming out of that hacking scandal in Great Britain and B-Sky B, and his son Lachlan is also there. So we've got two sons succeeding the father. This is not good news for the chief operating officer because, you know, Chase Carey, he had always thought that maybe he had a shot at succession. I think this is making him probably obsolete in the near term.
Yeah, the fact that, in fact, Mr. Murdoch, Rupert Murdoch, elevated his sons just last year to much more senior positions within the company. I think a lot of people read that, a lot of business analysts read that as a way to ensure that News Corp stayed in the family.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I think it was always going to stay in the family. You have to remember, this is a strange organization. A lot of media companies have very strong ownerships in the old-time generation. In this case, the Murdoch Family Trust controls almost 40%. So it's not as if this is going out of the family, but I think what this does say is day-to-day operations are staying within the family. Now, on some level, some shareholders think this is good. They kind of like James. They think he's matured. They like that idea. On the other hand, many shareholders have said, this is worrisome. We need another voice inside of this organization to help run it day to day. Maybe the whole closeness of this family makes it myopic, allows something like that British hacking scandal to occur. So maybe an outside voice would be better. For right now, it looks like the Murdoch family firmly in control.
Mr. Rupert Murdoch is seen by many as a businessman who's made some very, very gutsy decisions in his life. And I'm curious about your thoughts on the attempted takeover bid of Time Warner. What happened there?
Well, you know, Time Warner was in play, and Murdoch was coming out very strong. The CEO of Time Warner, I think, was a little bit taken ababack by it. And when
he wasn't. Well, you don't think Bukis was ready for that?
I don't think that they were ready for that. I don't think that deal was ever going to come to fruition. I think that they were far apart on a lot of issues. I also think that in Murdoch's eyes, an acquisition is not a merger. I will be taking you over. We will remain in control. And I think that if you're the organization that is going to be subsumed by Murdoch, it's not as if you're going to have a voice at the table. That's not happening. So I think that for any company that is actually acquired by Murdoch and this organization, you're basically saying, give me my paycheck and I'm out of here. I don't think many mature organizations are happy with that unless they have to be in that position.
I also find it really interesting that the Murdochs went through a bit of a grilling in the UK over the hacking scandal. Rebecca Brooks, who was the head of the chief operating officer, chief executive officer of his newspaper division out there, testified before that. But it doesn't seem to have tarnished Rupert Murdoch.
You know,
a lot of people went down in the UK, but not him.
Yeah, and amazingly, when you think about it, shutting down a newspaper, being under incredible scrutiny for over a year, and to come out of it sort of saying like, wow, I'm Teflon, was amazing. Just put this in perspective a little bit. I think that shareholders are quite forgiving with all of these scandals because let's look at this share price. Yes, Rupert Murdoch's company, 20th Century Fox, down over the last year, about 6.5%. 10 years, though, Fox is up 94%. Compare that with the S&P 500 over the last 10 years is up 77%. Hey, look, that tracks really well with media companies. Our parent CBS up 132% over the last 10 years. But it does show you these companies are delivering earnings to their shareholders, and shareholders seem to be quite forgiving when they're making money.
How dominant is News Corp vis-a-vis other media companies?
Well, I think News Corp has so many tentacles, and that's where there's dominance. And it's not just about news, and it's not just about entertainment, but it's also an international presence that's very different than many other organizations that we might be more familiar with here in the U.S. This is a dominant international media conglomerate. And let's not forget that, you know, it's not just the newspapers in Great Britain, it's the Wall Street Journal now. So there are a lot of pieces of this particular conglomerate that add up to quite powerful media voices. And I think that's another thing about Murdoch. He likes his media outlets to have a voice, and he's not afraid for the outlets to have a position and to have an editorial slant. He's very comfortable with that. Very interesting to me to see whether the sons will be as vocal, especially around politics. We know that there's been a lot of talk that Rupert Murdoch had said some years ago that he liked Hillary Clinton, although he had been somewhat more, presumed to be a Republican. This is going to be an interesting transition. And you know what? Every transition, whether it is planned or unplanned, has a lot of bumps in the road. The question is, are these young men, the next generation of Murdochs, going to have as steady and strong a hand and voice as Rupert Murdoch does day to day?
And before I let you go, Jill, I got to ask you, to that point, will the street appreciate that, or will the stock get knocked down a bit until they figure out what's going on?
I think time will tell. I mean, right now, we don't know whether he is walking out in 3 months or at the end of next year. I think that if it's a planned transition, shareholders are much more willing to accept that period. The question really becomes, what is going to happen to those earnings over the next 3, 4, 5 quarters? If there's a dip in those earnings, people are going to just lambaste the kids. It'll be great. They'll be sacrificial lambs. Even if it were really not their fault, if it was really Rupert's fault in the first place and he's walking away when things aren't so hot, they will be on the hook for that. It's all going to come down to delivering the shareholder value, and what these guys do in the coming months will determine whether the big institutional shareholders stick around or maybe jump ship.
All right, CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger. Thank you so much, Jill. Great analysis.